News came out of a Disney town hall that Bob Iger said he's not looking for any acquisitions anytime soon. What do you make of that announcement?
I don't think he has a lot of room to make acquisitions. I don't think acquisitions solve any of the problems he has in front of him, other than perhaps buying out Hulu and resolving what to do with it. If he was going to make one, it would probably should be in something like the interactive space. So Electronic Arts, EA. Maybe they do the Activision deal if the Justice Department ends up blocking the $95 a share purchase of Activision Blizzard that Microsoft is trying to make. But again, he's got some limits on what he can do because of his previous deals. They've got a lot of debt still in their back pocket because of the Fox deal that they got to pay off. And there's only so many things they could do. There are people that said things, well, he should buy Netflix. Well, like Netflix has got a market cap of about 130 billion, and Disney's got a market cap these days, and Disney has a market cap of about 180 billion. So it's 2/3 the size of Disney. Does Disney have those resources to buy that? No. So it's just a silly thing to say.
The Fox deal was $71 billion. Was that a good deal?
If you look at it in hindsight, a lot of debt, you got some assets that are useful. They were trying to really scale up for the streaming future. In doing that, they limited some of the things they could do as this has unfolded. I think it made sense at the time, and it got Disney at a scale where it was more competitive with the tech giants of Amazon and Apple and Alphabet with YouTube to compete. And it is really the only one of the Hollywood-based media companies that has anything like the scale needed to stay in the game with Amazon, Apple, and Netflix, right? So that's it. But it has the benefit of having its, that parks and resorts and consumer products side that throws off a lot of cash that can finance some of this stuff in ways that some of the smaller Hollywood companies like Paramount Global just don't have. But there's a lot of upsides there, and then there's complications that still haven't been resolved, like what do you do with Hulu, and what do you do to get bigger? And I think you can look at that deal, I think, in a much more mixed way now than you would have 3 years ago. I guess is the best way to put it right now.
Thanks. So, David, you wrote about Marvel fatigue as another challenge that Disney faces. Under Chapek, did he sink the MCU?
First of all, the first set of fatigue is with Star Wars, and that was happening under Iger. So they were rolling out so many Star Wars movies at such a cadence that they were starting to see a diminishing return on Star Wars like 2018, and they had to pull back after, I don't want to say it was Rogue One. It might have one of those sort of middle period Star Wars films. And then with Marvel, they've had this cadence in theaters, which made a lot of sense, but it was still a lot of stuff for, you had 4,000 Marvel figure characters or whatever it is. I interviewed Stan Lee decades ago, and he at that point, he created like 3 characters while we were talking in our interview.
Oh, wow.
Because he was Stan Lee. It's like, well, this guy would be able to do this, it's like, oh, okay, let's copyright that one, okay, Stan?
Right.
But the MCU already had a very rapid pace of new movies before they got into streaming. And in streaming, they've come out with a long string of terrific, actually really interesting genre-busting shows like WandaVision, which was just a fascinating show from an artistic standpoint. It wasn't just a standard let's blow things up kind of thing. She-Hulk, Attorney at Law, a very funny take on a workplace comedy involving She-Hulk as a lawyer. But who saw that coming, right? And then these more traditional ones like Hawkeye and all that. But you had so many of those to try to give people reasons to stick on to Disney Plus that it's reasonable to say you did too much. You got to pull it back. These things are expensive to make. You've got fan service to do, but at a certain point, there's a diminishing return, and maybe you need a little more diversity of programming besides just another Marvel TV show before another Marvel movie, before another Marvel animated thing, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, they've really loaded it up, and Disney's been doing that, even going back to the Iger days. Is I guess what I would say. You know, the development things on these predate Chapek by quite a bit, so they'll have to figure that out. They'll have to probably pull back some. They can save some money on that, space them out a little bit, and give people other reasons to watch Disney Plus. So that's how you do that. That's the key.
You laid out a mound of challenges that Bob Iger faces, but he only has 2 years until he names a successor and he's done. Do you think that's enough time for him to remedy these situations?
No, not at all.
Well,
I mean, there's a couple of things that go through my mind. One is, of course, there's no freaking way in a declining economy, a problematic economy, with the handcuffs he has with finances, with figuring out the whole long list of stuff. And I strongly I recommend everybody just jumping onto my fantastic story and a follow-up about his one job he has to do. He's got way too much to be able to get done in 2 years. And two things happen. Either one, he doesn't get them done and he retires again, or two, he doesn't retire because he can't find somebody to take them on in time for him to hand them off. And he keeps going for a while. And at that point, I think I joked at some place that he is indeed the GOAT, the greatest of all time, corporate CEOs, makes him the Tom Brady of CEOs. But like Tom Brady, he doesn't know how to quit. And his overachieving spouse, in this case, Willow Bay, a former broadcaster who is now the head of the communications school at the University of Southern California, as I'm sure grimacing, and Gisele Bundchen's feeling very sympathetic at his inability to say, "I'm done." And so I don't think he gets all this done in 2 years. The board says the most important thing is finding a successor, and that'll be hard enough. So stuff's going to keep rocking along for a little bit, but they're going to have to figure out Hulu by 2024, because that's the deal with Universal. They said they were going to get to break even on streaming by 2024, and he's still promising that, et cetera, et cetera. There's a bunch of stuff coming to a head, whether they like it or not. So,
well, the clock is certainly ticking here already, and we are excited to see how it all plays out. David Bloom, thank you so much for joining me.
you bet.